My name is Emily Carter. I'm 30 years old. And on my wedding day, I found my father standing in a hallway with no seat, while 8 people from my fiancé's family sat at the table that was supposed to be his. Table 1. Front and fronter. That's where my parents were meant to sit. Instead, someone moved them to table 15, the last table in the room, right next to the kitchen door and a service cart stacked with dirty dishes. And when I asked my fiancé why, I heard him say something about my father that shattered every excuse I'd been making for him for almost 2 years. I stood there in my wedding dress, 180 guests waiting on the other side of the doors, and I made a decision I cannot take back, and wouldn't. What I did, what he said, and what happened after that, that's the story I'm about to tell you. Before I do, take a second and think about your own parents. The people who raised you. The people who showed up, even when it was hard. Because this story is about that kind of love. Now let me take you back to the morning of May 22nd. The last morning I ever woke up as Ryan Mitchell's fiancé. Brookfield, Indiana, population 9,000. The kind of town where the cashier at the grocery store asks about your family before your total, and the same 3 teachers have been at high school for 25 years. I grew up on Pine Street in a small 2-bedroom house my dad bought the year I was born. He paid it off in 21 years. On the day he wrote the last check, he took us out for milkshakes like we had just won something. My dad, Mark Carter, worked as a mechanic. 36 years in the same garage, same coveralls, same lunchbox, same pair of boots he kept repairing instead of replacing. His hand was rough, grease in the lines, small cuts that never fully healed. But every night, he sat at the table and asked me what I learned that day. My mom, Diane, worked in the elementary school cafeteria. She served lunch to hundreds of kids. But what she really did was notice people. She knew who skipped meals, who pretended not to be hungry, who needed seconds but were too shy to ask. Those kids always got extra. Always. We didn't have much. I wore hand-me-downs. Our couch had a blanket covering a tear that never got fixed. The air conditioner worked in one room and one room only. But I never once felt like I was missing anything. I got through college on scholarships and loans, worked night shifts, studied in break rooms, slept in my car between classes. I became a nurse at a regional hospital just outside Indianapolis. Paid off my debt by 28. I built my life with my own hands. But the foundation, that was my parents. I thought a family like that would be enough for anyone. I was wrong. I met Ryan Mitchell on a Monday morning. His mother came into the clinic for a routine checkup. He drove her. He was leaning against the reception desk when I walked in, tall, composed, the kind of man who looked like he had never been unsure of himself a day in his life. He smiled at me, I smiled back. We went to dinner that week. Then again the next. Then every week after that. Ryan was charming in a way I wasn't used to. He opened doors, remembered details, made reservations at places where the menu didn't have prices, and the lighting made everything feel softer than it really was. The Mitchells were a different world. Real estate, investments, partnerships that went back decades. His father, Edward, ran the company. Ryan worked with him. His mother, Victoria, chaired charity events and hosted dinners where people shook hands like they were making deals even when they weren't. The first time I met Victoria, she wore a silk blouse and looked at me just a second too long before smiling. "A nurse," she said. "How practical." It sounded polite, it didn't feel kind. She mentioned casually that Ryan had dated a lawyer before me. "A lovely girl," she said. "From a very good family." She smiled when she said it. The kind of smile that wasn't really a smile. Ryan squeezed my hand under the table and whispered she'd warm up. I believed him. Because I was already in love. And love has a way of making you explain things you should be paying attention to. Ryan proposed 14 months later. Private room, candles, music, everything perfect down to the last detail. I said yes. Because I thought I was choosing him. Then the wedding planning started, and everything shifted. Victoria chose the venue, a private country club instead of the small church where my parents got married. She chose the planner. She chose the menu. And when my mom suggested adding one of her recipes, just something small, Victoria tilted her head and said, "That's sweet, Diane, but this is a formal dinner, not a family potluck." My mom laughed it off. I saw her hands tighten in her lap. Every time I pushed back, Ryan had the same answer. Let her have this one. After the wedding, it's just us. Our life will be different. I made a decision. Give up the small things now to protect the bigger future later. That was my logic. It made sense until it didn't. Because those small things weren't small, they were rehearsals. May 22nd, 6 a.m. I woke up in my childhood bedroom, sunlight through the curtains my mom sewed years ago. My dress hanging on the closet door. Simple. Mine. One thing I kept. By 10, I was at the country club. Everything looked perfect. White flowers, gold accents, crystal glasses. Expensive in a way you could feel without asking. 180 guests. Half from Ryan's side, business associates, club members, people who belonged in rooms like this. The other half were mine. Family, coworkers, neighbors. People who didn't care about crystal glasses. People who just showed up. I noticed the imbalance early. His guests filled the front tables. Mine were pushed toward the edges. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Just numbers. Just logistics. The ceremony went off without a problem. I walked down the aisle. Ryan smiled. Everything looked exactly how it was supposed to look. Afterward, while guests moved into cocktail hour, I stepped into the reception hall to check the setup. Habit. I double-checked things. The room was ready. 15 tables, white linens, gold place cards. Table 1 sat directly in front of the dance floor. That's where our parents were. I walked straight past the main hall and out into the side corridor where guests hadn't started gathering yet. I needed a minute, just one. But instead of slowing down, my steps got faster, because now I couldn't unhear it. They don't belong there. More appropriate. That word kept repeating in my head. Appropriate. As if my parents were something to be arranged. Placed. I turned the corner and saw them. My mom and dad were already inside the reception hall. Standing near table 15, not sitting, just standing there. My dad still had his jacket buttoned, like he didn't want to take up space. My mom was holding her clutch with both hands, looking around like she was trying to understand the room without drawing attention to herself. They had seen it. Of course they had. My mom noticed me first. Her face lit up immediately. That same smile she's had my entire life. There you are, she said softly. Everything looks beautiful. Beautiful. I looked at the table behind them, the folding chairs, the dim lighting, the service doors swinging open and shut. I felt something twist in my chest. I'm so sorry, I said. My dad shook his head right away. Hey, don't do that today. It's not right. It's a seat, he said gently. We're just happy to be here. That's who they were. They would accept anything, as long as it didn't make things harder for me. And in that moment, I realized something very clearly. If I let this happen, it wouldn't stop here. This wouldn't be the last time someone decided my parents were less than. It would just be the first time I agreed with it. I took a breath. Give me 5 minutes, I said. My mom frowned slightly. Emily, I'll be right back. I turned and walked away before they could say anything else. Because if I stayed, I might hesitate, and I couldn't afford to hesitate anymore. I went straight to the DJ booth. He was setting up playlists, adjusting levels, checking cables. Hi, I said, a little breathless. Can I borrow the mic for a second? He hesitated. Are we starting announcements already? Not exactly. Something in my face must have told him this wasn't a normal request. He handed it to me. Just keep it short. I nodded. The room was filling now. Guests were taking their seats, laughter, glasses clinking, soft music playing in the background. Ryan was across the room, talking to someone from his father's business. Victoria was near table 1, adjusting things like she was arranging a display. Perfect. I stepped onto the small platform near the dance floor. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. What I felt wasn't panic. It was clarity. I tapped the microphone lightly. The sound echoed through the room. Conversations started to fade. Heads turned. Ryan looked up. Confused. Hi, I said. My voice carried further than I expected. Before we start dinner, I just wanted to say something quickly. A few people smiled. Some raised their glasses. They thought this was a toast. I looked at table 1, then at table 15, then back at the crowd. There's been a small change to the seating arrangement today, I said. A few people glanced around, mildly curious. I just found out about it a few minutes ago. Now Ryan was moving toward me. Not fast, but fast enough. I was told that certain guests were moved to the back of the room because it was more appropriate. The word felt different when I said it out loud. Sharper. He stopped walking. So I'd like to fix that. I stepped down from the platform, walked straight past table 1, past Victoria. She said my name under her breath, tight and warning. I didn't stop. I walked all the way to table 15. Every step felt louder than the last. My parents looked confused. The entire room had turned to watch. I took my dad's hand, then my mom's. They're not sitting here, I said. My voice didn't shake. They're sitting with me. And then I did something no one expected. I walked them to table 1. The room was completely silent. You could hear the soft clink of glass somewhere in the back. That was it. I stopped in front of the table. Looked at the 8 people sitting there. Ryan's relatives. They didn't move. Not at first. I'm going to need these seats, I said. No anger. No yelling. Just certainty. One of them laughed awkwardly. I think there's been a misunderstanding. There hasn't. Silence again. And then something shifted. Because people were watching. Everyone, and suddenly staying seated meant something different than it did 30 seconds ago. One by one they stood up. Chairs scraped against the floor, napkins placed back on plates. No one argued again. I pulled out the 2 main chairs. Sit, I said softly to my parents. My mom looked at me like she didn't recognize me for a second. My dad hesitated. Emily, this isn't necessary. It is. He looked at me a moment longer. Then he sat. My mom followed. I turned back toward the room, picked the microphone up again. I'm sorry for the confusion, I said calmly. But the people who raised me, who sacrificed everything so I could stand here today, I paused. Looked directly at Ryan. They belong at the front. No one clapped. Not yet. The room was still deciding what this was. A mistake? A moment? Something bigger? Ryan walked toward me again. This time faster. His jaw tight. Emily, he said under his breath, what are you doing? I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time, I didn't try to soften what I saw. I'm fixing it. This isn't the time, you said that earlier. His voice dropped lower. You're embarrassing my family. I felt something in me settled completely. Not anger, not even hurt. Just final. They embarrassed mine first. Victoria stepped forward now, controlled, cold. This is not how things are done. I turned to her. You're right. A small pause. This isn't how you do things. And then I handed the microphone back to the DJ. There was a moment, just one, where everything hung in the air, unresolved. Then someone at the back started clapping. Slow at first, then another. And another. It spread, not loudly, not dramatically, but enough. Enough to change the room. Ryan didn't clap. Neither did his mother. Dinner continued, but nothing felt the same. People whispered, watched, adjusted how they spoke. And me? I sat at table 1, between my parents. For the first time that day, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And right then, I knew. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of something else entirely. Something I should have seen a long time ago. Dinner went on like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. You could feel it in the room. Conversations were quieter, more careful. People choosing their words instead of just speaking. Some guests came up to our table. Not many. But enough. A woman I barely knew touched my arm and said, that was the right thing to do. One of Ryan's distant cousins leaned in and whispered, about time someone said something. Even the wedding coordinator gave me a small nod when she passed by. Not approval. Understanding. Ryan barely spoke during dinner. He sat stiffly answering questions when he had to, smiling when people looked directly at him, but the kind of smile that disappears the second no one's watching. Victoria didn't look at me at all. Not once. After the main course, Ryan leaned toward me. We need to talk. I nodded. I know. We stepped outside onto the terrace. The music from inside was muffled now, soft, distant. For the first time all day, it was quiet. He turned to me immediately. What you did in there was necessary. You humiliated my parents. I held his gaze. No, I said calmly. I corrected something that should never have happened. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once before stopping again. You made a scene. They made a decision. That's not the same thing. You're right, I said, a pause. I chose not to stay silent about it. That landed. I could see it. But instead of understanding, something else came through. Frustration. Not about what happened, about how it looked. You couldn't wait? He asked. Just one night? We could have handled it privately. There shouldn't have been anything to handle privately. He exhaled sharply. This is how things work sometimes, Emily. There are expectations. Appearances matter. There it was again. Appearances. My parents were put next to a trash cart, I said. What exactly were we trying to make appear better? He didn't answer that. Instead, he said something worse. They don't understand these environments anyway. It was quiet for a second, but not the peaceful kind. The kind where something ends. I looked at him, and suddenly, everything lined up. Every comment I ignored, every moment I brushed off, every small thing I convinced myself didn't matter. This wasn't new. This was him. You're right, I said softly. He looked up, almost relieved. Finally, they don't understand this environment. I repeated. A small pause. And I don't belong in it. His expression changed. What does that mean? It means I'm done. Silence, real silence this time. You don't mean that. I do. Emily, don't be dramatic. I almost smiled at that. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. I'm not being dramatic, I said. I'm being clear. He stepped closer. We're getting married in less than an hour. I nodded. I know. People are here. I know. My family will recover. That hit him. Harder than anything else, I'd said. You're really gonna throw this away? Over seating? I shook my head slowly. No, I said. Over what the seating showed me. He stared at me, waiting, for doubt, for hesitation, for the version of me that kept compromising. She wasn't there anymore. I won't spend my life explaining to someone why my parents deserve basic respect, I said. And I won't build a future with someone who already decided they don't. He didn't argue after that. Not really. Because there wasn't anything left to argue. We went back inside separately. The coordinator looked at me immediately. She must have seen something in my face. Are we ready to line up for the first dance? She asked carefully. No, I said. We're not. Word spread fast. Faster than I expected. The music stopped. Conversations faded again. People turned. Waited. I didn't take the microphone this time. I didn't need to. I'm so sorry, I said loud enough for the room to hear. But the wedding isn't gonna continue. Gasps, whispers, a chair scraping somewhere in the back. I didn't explain everything. I didn't need to. I appreciate all of you being here, I added. It means more than you know. And then I stepped down. Walked straight back to table 1. My mom stood up immediately. What's happening? I took her hand. We're going home. My dad looked at me for a long second. Not confused. Not shocked. Just steady. All right, he said. No questions. No pressure. Just trust. We walked out together. Past the tables. Past the guests. Past everything that had been planned for months. No one stopped. Then my mom said quietly, "Are you okay?" I looked out the window, then back at them. For the first time today, I said, "I really am." My dad nodded once, started the car, and just like that, we drove away. I wish I could tell you it was easy after that. It wasn't. There were calls, messages, some angry, some confused, a few surprisingly supportive. Ryan tried to reach out, at first to talk, then to fix things, then eventually to ask if I was really serious. I was. We didn't get married. We didn't try again. There wasn't anything left to try. A few months later, I moved to a different city. Same job, new hospital, new start. And my parents? They still sit at the front of everything in my life. Exactly where they belong. Looking back now, I don't think the wedding falling apart was the worst thing that could have happened. I think the worst thing would have been going through with it. Because some moments don't just show you who someone else is. They show you who you are. When you finally decide not to look away.